Another quick heads up. This isn't financial or tax advice. I'm just sharing lessons I learned and am learning. If motivation worked with money, most people wouldn't be watching this video. They'd already be out of debt. They'd already have savings. They'd already feel in control. Because let's be honest, most people aren't lacking motivation. They want to do better. They want less stress. They want to stop feeling behind. They've read the articles. They've watched the videos. They've had the "this is the month I finally get it together" conversation with themselves more times than they can count. And yet, nothing sticks. If that sounds familiar, I want you to hear this clearly right now. The problem isn't you. The problem is that motivation is the most overrated tool in personal finance. In the last two videos, we talked about awareness, why most people feel broke, and how money quietly disappears when you're not looking. That step matters because you can't manage what you can't see. But once you do see it, most people make the same mistake next. They say, okay, now I'm motivated, now I'm going to be disciplined, now I'm going to do it right. And then life happens. They have a long day, they're tired, something unexpected comes up. They tell themselves they'll deal with it tomorrow, and slowly, quietly, motivation fades. That's not a personal failure. That's how motivation works. Motivation is emotional. It's reactive. It spikes when you feel inspired and disappears when things get boring, stressful, or inconvenient. And money? Money is boring, repetitive, and inconvenient by nature. That's why motivation is unreliable. Think about the last time you felt really motivated about money. Maybe it was after a stressful month, or after checking your balance and feeling that pit in your stomach, or after watching a video that fired you up. What happened next? You probably made a plan. You probably told yourself you'd be better. You might have even had a great week or two. And then something threw it off. That's because motivation doesn't survive friction, and money is full of friction. Bills don't care how motivated you are. Subscriptions don't pause because you're tired. Unexpected expenses don't check your mood first. So if your entire financial plan depends on you trying harder, it's already fragile. Here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Money doesn't improve because you feel motivated. Money improves because you build systems that work even when you don't feel like it. That's the difference between people who start over and over and people who quietly make progress. Let's talk about why motivation fails so consistently. First, motivation is temporary. It's emotional energy, not a skill. It's like caffeine, helpful in short bursts, useless as a long-term strategy. Second, motivation requires constant decision-making. Every time you rely on motivation, you're asking yourself to make the right choice again and again. What should I spend? What should I skip? What should I save? Decision fatigue sets in fast, especially after work, stress, or life. Third, motivation creates an all-or-nothing mindset. When you're motivated, you aim for perfection. When perfection breaks, you quit. That's why people say things like, well, I already messed up this month, so what's the point? That mindset keeps people stuck for years. What actually works is much less exciting and far more effective. What works is structure. Structure beats motivation every time. Structure means making fewer decisions, not better ones. Structure means removing friction from good habits and adding friction to bad ones. Structure means designing your money so it behaves even when you don't. This is where our first and second videos matter so much. Awareness gives you information. Structure turns that information into behavior. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who says, I'm motivated to save money. That sounds great, but every month saving only happens if they remember, if they feel like it, and if nothing else gets in the way. Now imagine someone who has savings automatically transferred the day after payday. They don't feel motivated. They don't even think about it. The money just moves. Which one do you think saves more over time? It's not the more motivated person. It's the person with the better system. This is where beginners get tripped up, because structure feels restrictive at first. It feels like rules. It feels like losing freedom. But the truth is, structure creates freedom. When your money has a default behavior, you don't have to constantly fight yourself. You stop negotiating with your future self, You stop relying on discipline when you're exhausted. So let's talk about what structure actually looks like at this stage, because you're still not budgeting yet. Right now, structure means setting defaults, not limits. Defaults are what happens automatically, unless you intervene. For example, if your default is that all your money sits in checking, then spending becomes the default behavior. Saving requires effort. If your default is that money moves to savings first, then spending becomes the thing that requires effort. Same income, same person, completely different outcome. Another example, if your default is to swipe your card whenever you feel like it, then tracking becomes hard and spending becomes invisible. If your default is to check one place once a week, then awareness stays alive without obsession. This is why the most important question at this stage isn't, how motivated am I? It's, what happens automatically in my financial life right now? Because whatever happens, automatically is what wins. Here's where I want you to pause and reflect. Based on what you learned in the last video, where your money actually goes, ask yourself this: which parts of my money are intentional, and which parts are just happening to me? Most people discover that spending is automatic and saving is optional. That's backwards. Now, this is where people usually try to overhaul everything at once, and that's a mistake. Overcorrection kills progress. Instead, structure starts small. You pick one behavior and make it easier. You pick one leak and make it harder. That's it. For example, if eating out is blowing up your month, structure might mean setting a separate account or weekly amount just for that. When it's gone, it's gone. No guilt, no decision. The system decides. If subscriptions were a problem, structure might mean canceling anything you don't actively use and putting remaining ones on a single reminder list you review once a month. If saving never happens, structure might mean opening a separate savings account and setting a tiny automatic transfer. Even $20 counts. The amount doesn't matter. The behavior does. This is also where I want to say something important, especially if you've failed before. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. That's why motivation-based plans collapse. That's why I'll just be more careful never works. That's why people repeat the same financial year over and over. Quick pause here. If this series has been helping you think about money in a way that actually makes sense, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more regular people find this channel instead of getting buried under guru content. Another reason motivation fails is because it assumes life will cooperate. It won't. There will be months where you're tired, months where things break, months where emotions run high. Structure doesn't care. Structure holds the line when motivation disappears. That's why the goal right now isn't to feel excited about money. It's to feel calm. Calm comes from predictability. Predictability comes from systems. And systems come from awareness, which you've already started building. So here's your action step for this video, and it's intentionally simple. Pick one thing you're currently relying on motivation for and turn it into a default. One thing, not 5, just one. Maybe it's savings, maybe it's tracking them, maybe it's limiting one category. Write it down. Decide when it happens. Automate it if possible. If not, attach it to something you already do. That's how habits form. Not from hype, from repetition. In the next video, we're finally going to talk about budgeting, but not in the way most people do. We're going to talk about a beginner budget that doesn't feel restrictive, doesn't require perfection, and actually works with real life instead of against it. But before you get there, you need this truth locked in. Motivation is a spark. Structure is the engine, and engines are what move you forward. Bonus tip before you go. If you're just starting to build structure, rename your savings account to something specific like Next Emergency or Future Me. People save more when money has a job, not just a place. That small change alone can make your next decision easier. And easier decisions are how progress compounds. That's it for this one. See you in the next video.